D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Nute here with you. We are live at the Hermitage Golf Course for the 5th annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament. It's a sweltering day in Nashville, Tennessee, but we're happy to be out here supporting a great cause. And on the way to our station, so to speak, today, I took Derrick Mason's life into my own hands by driving him on a golf cart. And I am happy to announce that both of us made it here safely. Willie was on a different golf cart, so Willie's life wasn't at risk. But I safely piloted Derrick from the clubhouse to our little camp out here. So are you glad you're feeling safe? Were you worried at all?
A tad bit at first. And then I sat down. The seats were clutch, so that relaxed some. But then you let me know. You reassured me.
Yes.
That everything, you passed your test. I'm not going to tell people how you passed.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
Okay, you passed the test. And that's all I needed to know. They say those that can't golf, drive golf carts. And that is that.
Well, I certainly don't mind driving a golf cart. We've got a full show planned for everybody today. Joe Rexrode, our very own, will join us at 4 to discuss college football, the SEC spring meetings. I am also going to tell Rexrode that I am disappointed because Rexrode isn't at SEC spring meetings this year. And I'm disappointed we didn't get that little powwow between Rexrode and Paul Feinbaum on the beach that we got last year on the SEC. It was a beautiful scenery for Rexrode's appearance on the Paul Feinbaum show last year. So I'm going to tell him that I'm disappointed in that. But otherwise, we'll discuss college football with our friend Joe Rexrode. Elliotte Friedman, SportsNet NHL Insider, will join us at 5 to discuss the latest in the Predators GM search. But we start today's show with some news that broke last night that I know Willie Donick saw and breathed a big sigh of relief. Vanderbilt point guard Tyler Tanner has withdrawn from the NBA draft. He will return for his junior season. I heard Jake Lyman say this earlier on Next Man Up, and I would agree. Without Tyler Tanner, maybe the Commodores are a top 20, top 25 team next season. But with Tyler Tanner, I believe, Willie, Coach Willie may not like this, but I believe the Commodores with Tyler Tanner are a dark horse national title contender next year.
I hope you're right. I don't know if I want to go that far until I see the new guys and how they fit together. But I do think that as crazy as that might have sounded 5 years ago, these days with NIL and when you have a coach that's good at having new people come in and fit together, they seem to have a good vision of that 2 years in a row. I can see it. I would love to see them get to a Final Eight. They've never been to a Final Eight before, or they haven't since going way back into the 1960s, well before the tournament was what it is today. But I'm happy that Tyler Tanner's coming back. I would like to think that I would be unselfish enough that if he had gone and he knew he was making the right decision, I would be happy for him. But man, I'm really excited that he sees the value in coming back and wants to be there. And I think because of it, you're probably going to have more of a countdown and more excitement for a Vanderbilt basketball season than you have in a long time, especially with momentum.
Derrick, Tyler Tanner was an all-SEC selection and an honorable mention All-American. I certainly think he has All-American potential. ESPN's latest mock draft had Tanner going number 35 overall. So that's early second round. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Things changed dramatically from a contractual standpoint for an NBA draft pick between the first round and the second round. It really does make a lot of sense financially and for Tanner's career, in my opinion, to come back to Vanderbilt, build off of what he did last year. And I think if he takes that next step, I think he could put himself into lottery pick status next year in the NBA draft.
Yeah, you can. I mean, now that NIL is a big part of college athletics. Situations like Tyler, you're going to see more often, where guys can get the top dollar at the collegiate level, or they can take chances on being a fringe first rounder or a second rounder. And that second round, you might as well stay in college, make the money, and develop as a player. So I think you're going to see this more and more as we continue to go. I think Tanner, put his name in a hat, did the combine thing, and see how he matched up against other guards that were in this year's draft and just players in general. And I'm sure he talked with GM and scouts there. And he made a decision with his family to come back to Vanderbilt and to be the leader of that team. And are they a dark horse finals team? Possibly. I'm like Billy. I want to see how this thing sort of pans out with them. They may look good now. You get into the season, injuries, and everything else. But they do present a team that I believe can seriously make a run in the SEC for the SEC title. They were able to do that last year, and I think they're going to be able to do it this year. They've gotten bigger, which they needed to as a team. They got a few more shooters. Being is coming back another year of development. So this, Byington has put together a really good team the last couple of years. And if everyone stays healthy. And like I said, those things that they were deficient at last year, Tanner shooting the three-pointer and then them not being as big, they've gotten bigger, and I'm sure Tanner's going to get a lot better at that three-point shot. So they can seriously make a run at a national championship, but I think right now that's a lot to put on a team, that has transfers coming in, and you got to sort of mesh those guys.
They do have to replace, Willie, a lot of key pieces who are departing, such as Duke Miles and Tyler Nickel and Devin Lockton. They have brought in transfers, of course.
But just those three. Yes, that's about 500 games in college right there. All those guys played for 5 years. Right? I mean, they have seniors that had a lot of experience under their belt. So, those guys are not easy to replace.
Also, in the NBA, there was some breaking news right before we came on the air. Excuse me if I can pull it up. It was reported by Shams Charania of ESPN that the NBA, let me make sure I get this right, the NBA's Board of Governors has passed new anti-tanking rules that include expanding the draft lottery from 14 to 16 teams, a relegation zone where the bottom three teams get penalized with lessened chances for the number one pick, and flattened odds, sources tell ESPN. The Board of Governors vote passed 29-1, with the Memphis Grizzlies as the lone vote against the new anti-tanking reform. So Memphis going out on its own.
Everybody's been dogging Memphis.
Yeah.
Memphis is like, you know what?
Screw you.
Exactly.
You want to be like that?
We're going to be the outcast. We know it's going to pass. We're going to
make our statement.
Yes.
LeBron, you don't like us? Okay, fine.
29-1. So the 3-2-1 lottery system from Shams Charania is named to represent the number of lottery balls per team. Teams with a bottom three record, the relegation area, have only 2 lottery balls. Teams that do not qualify for the playoffs or play in tournament in spots 4 through 10 receive 3 lottery balls each. So this is a way to prevent teams from really tearing it down and being as awful as possible, because it worsens your odds to get the number one pick if you finish in the bottom 3 of the
So are they saying that, okay, I understand the no-taking deal, but the bottom 3 teams, no matter if they try to tank or not, the bottom 3 teams get less balls than the ones that that doesn't make sense.
I think it makes sense.
No, from this standpoint, what if my guys are playing? They're just a bad team.
They clearly haven't been. They haven't.
No. I'll give you an example. Now, okay, if we end up where, say, who was the worst team this year? Wasn't Memphis? Who was the worst team this year?
Washington.
So take Washington, for instance. What if Washington had their team and they were trying to absolutely win? And everybody, and their record wasn't as bad as it was the previous year. So you're still going to penalize them, even though they tried to win.
Everybody else screwed it for them.
my answer.
To me, it
It
doesn't
would be a
make
problem
sense.
if everybody was trying to win, but they're not. Like I will give you an example. On the circuit of the NHL traveling, sometimes you interweave with the NBA circuit, right? Same buildings, same hotels sometimes. And we were in Dallas, and a team not very good had beaten the Mavs the night before. And we bumped into their people. Hey, good Mavs, beat the Mavs. And one of the guys, he's not a player, but he shook his head. He goes, "We're not trying to win right now."
Why would that dumb you know what say that? Like,
He said it.
but you know,
but it was obvious.
You know when somebody's blatant.
They were like, "Thanks, we weren't trying. We don't want to win."
But you know, blatant. You know when people are blatantly trying to tank. You know those things.
And there were a lot of NBA teams this season that were doing that.
You're absolutely right. But what if they have a year when nobody's trying to tank? But you get
Maybe you can appeal and say, "Look, can you watch the film of our games? We're really trying."
What does the eye test say?
Yes.
What is the NBA for? Man, it's like,
But there were teams this year. There were documentation of teams taking guys that really weren't hurt, and they were putting them on the shelf, and they were calling up people from the G League that had no business being in the league. Like several of it was just obvious what was going on.
It's an unprecedented move in American pro sports, says Shams Charania, for the NBA punishing the very worst teams in the draft lottery and creating a new system to incentivize winning.
That could be fun at the end of the year. Like, fight to get out of those bottom three.
You're incentivizing winning. What if everybody try to win and they still
They're not. That's the problem. I'll say
this sounds like Memphis' argument.
I've been in the same NL only fantasy baseball league for 25 plus years. We made a rule to stop tanking that the number of saves, it's a save league. So depending on where you finish, it's not a save. We used to do it where the worst team got the most players they could save. But we were seeing teams completely dump their best players, the teams at the top, and play only for getting last place so they can save more guys. And so we fixed it so there's an incentive to stay out. The bottom couple spots don't get the most. So it's the same principle that the NBA should. Maybe the NBA studied our league. Is that possible?
Okay, for instance, take this for instance. All right.
Derrick has a lot of problems with this.
All right. The Denver Nuggets. Jokic and Murray. What if they both can't? What if they both miss half the season?
Right.
That is a bad team without.
Okay, well, let's take the real life example of that. The Pacers, right? They lost Halliburton in the 7th game of the finals. They knew he was gone, and they tanked. And it burned them because they lost the pick anyway.
But what I'm saying is that what if two of your superstars and you're only a two-superstar team and both of them get hurt?
I think that's what the Pacers. That's what they were kind of doing. Like, hey, we're our franchise guy. What are we supposed to do? We can't be as good.
No,
we might look really bad.
But I'm just saying, like the NFL, not the NFL, the NBA can get themselves in a quagmire. They can't. Because if LeBron, I don't even want to say it. Because I like these guys. But what if three superstars get hurt?
Right.
We've seen that happen on teams.
Nothing's
And you got to play G League guys. You got to call Willie up because you knew that he played for Vandy.
And what's the starting five is Biggin, Derrick, Mason,
Nute.
These guys they're really good. They're trying to win. They're trying to win.
But we're not.
Now, we're going to play hard. We're going to play hard. We're going to lose.
If I brought up 5 players from the G League and I still beat you, then you're trying to
I don't hate the idea overall. Derrick, you seem to have some issues. You're Memphis on this. The lone vote against it. 49-1.
Watch Memphis. We'll get the first pick next year. Guaranteed.
But I like it. I'm imagining a game at the end of the season between the third worst team and the fourth worst team, and whoever loses that game ends up in the bottom 3 and only gets 2 lottery balls, and the other team gets 3. That makes it interesting. You may watch a really bad game at the end of the NBA season.
It's what it should be, instead of the opposite, where There was a famous game in the NHL a few years ago.
Yes.
Where the Sabres.
It was the Sabres versus the Coyotes.
Was it against the Coyotes?
I believe it was the Sabres versus the Coyotes. The game was in Buffalo. I want to say that was the Connor McDavid, Jack Eichel draft.
It was.
And the Coyotes scored, I want to say it was in overtime. The Coyotes scored in overtime in Buffalo, and the crowd erupted.
Because they were excited.
Because they were excited that the Sabres lost.
Like more ping pong balls.
More, indeed. So, according to Sean
Why was it even
Sharania,
close? Why was the game even close?
Some hockey games just can't help but be close at times.
Unlike those Eastern Conference Finals games recently between the Hurricanes and Canadians. But according to Sean Sharania, the NBA is making, quote, an unprecedented move in American pro sports by punishing the very worst teams in the draft lottery and creating a new system to incentivize winning, the 3-2-1 lottery system. The teams with the worst 3 records in the NBA will only receive 2 lottery balls versus the 3 that the teams that do not qualify for the playoffs or play-in tournament will receive by finishing in spots 4 through 10, if I explained that all succinctly. 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Coming up next, I want to get into the Titans because I was reading a story by Mike Sando of The Athletic where he listed his favorite offseason moves by every NFL team. And I was surprised by his answer about the Tennessee Titans. I found it to be quite interesting. We'll discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. We are live at the Hermitage Golf Course for the 5th annual 615 Charity Open Tournament. And you can bid now on all kinds of awesome experiences to directly support Folds of Honor at 615open.com/auction. You can have an unforgettable time while supporting a great cause. I looked at the auction today. A lot of great experiences, concerts, and other events at Bridgestone Arena. So check it out. That's at 615open.com/auction.
Hey, if you've lived in Middle Tennessee area for any time, you have seen how wild our weather can be, from winter storms, tornadoes, to flooding. We've seen it all. Like many of you, the winter storms earlier this year caught me unprepared. I lost my power for 7 days. That's 7 days out of my house, 7 days in a hotel, 7 days worrying about whether my pipes were going to burst or not. But that's when I realized being prepared isn't optional. I will be ready the next time a weather emergency hits. So I started looking for whole home generators and found Tri-State Water Power and Air. They've been in business for over 30 years, specializing in generators for more than half of those, which is great. But the reason I chose them and the reason I called was because of the reviews and the confidence other homeowners shared about their experience with Tri-State Water Power and Air. When Tri-State came to my house, they did a free on-site assessment and made sure the generator fit my home for me and my family's needs. The thing I appreciated the most is they didn't try to oversell me, just straight to the answers, turnkey, and they handled everything, which I love. From installation to long-term services. If something ever goes wrong, I don't want to be calling a third party. I want to call Tri-State Water, Power, and Air, because that is what they do. They make sure they are there for you when you need them. So that's the kind of relationship I want, and I know that's the kind of relationship you want. But look, the weather's not slowing up. It's bright and sunny today, but it might not be that way tomorrow and next week. So be ready. Call Tri-State Water, Power, and Air today to protect your home and your family. Find them at tristatewhiteweight.com. That's tristatewhiteweight.com.
Today, the Nashville Sounds take on the Gwinnett Stripers at First Horizon Park. First pitch today is at 6:35. Catch all of the action on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks, Family Leisure, Maple Street Biscuit Company, and Social Cantina. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, live at Hermitage Golf Course for the 5th annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament. Before we move on, I meant to mention this yesterday. I want to mention it now. It was announced yesterday that the late Mark Howard is going to be inducted into the Tennessee Radio Hall of Fame. I do want to congratulate Mark's family on that honor. One of the most recognizable voices in Nashville sports during a career that spanned decades. Willie, I know you worked very closely with Mark Howard in your broadcasting career. I always loved my conversations with Mark Howard at Predators games. He was a part of the Predators broadcast at one point. So congratulations to the family of the late Mark Howard, inducted into the Tennessee Radio Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think it's a great move. And Mark, of course, was a multimedia guy for a long time at Channel 5, is what brought him to Nashville, before he sort of segued into the radio world. But just a great character from the past. And I can't say enough good things. He was a good friend, and I think it's a great move that they're electing him to the Tennessee Radio Hall of Fame. And really, you know, when I was a part, in fact, I was the first voice for trivia purposes of the Zone when it became a sports station, and I went over there. It was they were a rock and roll station that had the Titans games when Derrick was playing, and we built it from scratch. It started just with an afternoon show that George Plaster and Darren McFarland were a part of, and Darren and I were the first on, and then George joined us a couple months later for that's a whole nother story. And then later we added the morning show, and that was Mark Howard and Frank Wycheck and Kevin Ingram, and then joined by Paul Kuharski on a couple days a week, and they built just a tremendous following for years and years and years, and Mark was a big staple of that. So congratulations to Mark and for all of his friends and people in this area and family. I know they're really smiling right now.
Absolutely. So Mike Sando of The Athletic wrote a story where he listed his favorite offseason moves by every NFL team. So, of course, I clicked on the story and I looked for the new Titans logo because I was interested in what Mike Sando would say about the Titans. And my gut was he was going to say something about drafting Carnell Tate or Cam Ward dropping some pounds. I don't know. I was expecting something along those lines. So I was a bit surprised when I saw Sando's answer for the Tennessee Titans in terms of his favorite offseason move. He said, quote, leaning into New York reclamation projects. Mike Sando writes, quote, no one is saying that the Tennessee job is easy or that Titans owner Amy Adams Strunk has proved to possess a stable hand. This is a tough job in its own way. But in hiring new coach Robert Saleh and new offensive coordinator Brian Daboll, the Titans are leaning into leaders who were coaches in the NFL's toughest market. Saleh, the former Jets coach, and Daboll, fired by the Giants in January, have landed in a market where the bright lights shine on Lower Broadway more than on the football operation. We've seen quarterbacks leave the Jets, Sam Darnold, and Giants, Daniel Jones, to find success in less challenging markets. Perhaps the same can hold true for Saleh and Daboll. That from Mike Sando. And Willie, to Sando's point, we talk so much about changes of scenery for players. We mentioned the Vegas Golden Knights yesterday and how Mitch Marner, moving from Toronto to Vegas, clearly has had an impact on the outstanding postseason he has had so far, going to his first Stanley Cup final in just about a week or so. But I don't ever really think about that same thing for coaches. So I thought it was interesting that Mike Sando pointed out, hey, maybe Robert Saleh and Brian Daboll, they were chewed up and spit out in New York. They come to Tennessee. Maybe a change of scenery can do them some good as well.
It's a good theory. I think that can be something that it probably depends on the coach, how much more at ease they feel when they're not quite as much feeling the heat of the media market, because you can't help it in New York. Like, if it's not going well, they don't want to hear about you don't have a quarterback, or your quarterback is Zach Wilson, or they don't want to hear that. They're like, we got to win. Our team hasn't won in a while. Why aren't we winning? And if it's not going well, the automatic move is, well, get rid of the coach. Let's try something else. And I do think there tends still to be, in this market, more patience. And although there's no question that you get a ton of attention as the Titans head coach relative to the market, we talk huge amounts of Titans, right? There's nothing that we're not going to discuss. It's not quite as venomous as New York. Now, whether that's going to affect anything that Robert Saleh or Brian Daboll do on a day-to-day basis, I don't think so. But I do think maybe the less stress can be a good fresh start. The experience of having gone through that fire in New York can be a good thing too.
I think it can be, but I ultimately, I think all coaches, when they are, relieved of their duties, fired, whatever, and take another job, they feel sort of a little bit more at ease, because they know now what they didn't know when they became a head coach. And it's like, okay, now these are the things that I will do different. I may not sweat some things like I did at my previous job. I may not stress out about some things. I may pour in more in this area, with this new team. So I think it's all relative in the sense of every coach has their own issues that they have to deal with, and how they sort of mature as a coach in their next job, and how the roster looks will dictate whether they have success or not. Yes, the market in New York and Chicago and LA, but in particularly New York and Detroit. But New York, they can't get on you. And it can be, I'm sure, bad when you're not winning. But ultimately, I don't think that's what, causes a team to win or lose. They didn't have a quarterback, the Jets. And they thought they did. They didn't. Then they went and got one. And he gets hurt the first, 10 minutes of the game, probably less than that. So they had issues that were sort of out of their hands. And the fans jumped on it, knowing that, hey, listen, without a quarterback, we can't do anything. But like you said, Willie, in New York, they don't care. They just want you to win. Same with Daboll. His may not have been as venomous than Saleh's, because he did go to a playoff, and he did have a quarterback that had a resurgent, sort of speak, and he did have an offensive player of the year. No, was Saquon offensive player of the year that year? Or rookie of the year, I believe.
Either way, he had the star running back. Yeah,
he had a star running back. So he at least he had one good year out of the 3 or 4 that he was there. So his was a little bit different. It was pressure, but it was different from Saleh, because Saleh really never experienced, outside of one season, I think, and they didn't even make the playoffs. He never really experienced any success. So it will be the same here, I believe, if he isn't, especially in the first year. And I tend to believe, hey, if anyone is, on Saleh after this first year, unless they just seem like they're worse than what they were last year, you got to give him time. I think he's going to get time. But if they're not winning, people are going to start questioning, did you make the right hire or not?
One texter says, so Brian Callahan was chewed up and spit out by the Titans. How's he going to do in New York? Well, Brian Callahan is the Giants passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach. It's a little bit different.
Not quite in the limelight.
Not quite in the limelight with the New York Giants.
But you know what? I think Brian Callahan might carve out a good career still.
Oh, he'll be a coach.
I don't know if he'll be a head coach again, but I think he'll be a guy that has a job in the league. I think he's a good person and a football mind. It just was too much for him, and he didn't get dealt a great hand. And ultimately, for Robert Saleh and Brian Daboll, it's going to come down to, do they have the Jimmies and Joes, right? What's in the card deck? If Mike Barganzi deals them 6, 7s, and 8s, there's only so much you're going to do with that. They need some face cards. They need some aces.
I was thinking about this, and Willie, you touched on it a little bit in your first response to this. Nashville has been a professional sports market for nearly 30 years now?
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot of time. But I do think as a sports market, sports fans here in Nashville, I think they've matured significantly. Fans here are not just happy to be there anymore. They want their teams to compete for championships. However, we're never going to be New York. We're never going to be Boston. We're never going to be LA or Chicago. That's just not the market we are. We don't have those dyed-in-the-wool generational fans that those markets have just because they've had professional sports for a lot longer than we have. So I know that there are a lot of you out there that wish that the three of us, the reporters on the beats, were tougher and meaner. And remember the question that Steve Simmons, the Toronto Sun columnist, asked John Chayka, the new Maple Leafs GM. I spoke to 20 people, and 19 of them think you're a snake oil salesman. How do you respond? I know a lot of you wish that sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Fierce reporting and question asking happened here. And I do think it does, but we're never going to be New York as a sports market. But that doesn't mean that we aren't going to hold the head coaches of the teams here accountable when necessary.
I think it's come a long way. I think we've moved towards New York some, but still light years away. Because what I see in those markets, and I think Toronto is a good example in the hockey world, it be at a certain point, there's so many people covering a team, and there's this notion of you got to hold their feet to the fire. And it becomes irrational sometimes. It becomes so negative that the measured response, the nuanced response gets lost in the noise sometimes because there's too many people with the fire and brimstone that, the real story, in my mind anyway, of, a good balanced discussion of here's why it's not going well, here's who's accountable. And you stop short of saying, well, either you win it all or you stink. That's really what it is a lot of times.
Yes.
That's what it becomes, and it becomes irrational.
I agree with that.
And Robert Saleh, remember we had, who was the guy we had that covered Saleh?
Zach Rosenblatt.
Yeah, and he made a great point.
From The Athletic.
Saleh's DNA as a rookie head coach and a younger was to sort of combat it. He would call the media people and say, well, you got it all wrong. This is why it's going to. And he said, once you get in New York, once you get going down that path, that rabbit hole, you can't win. You can't win that battle.
But that would happen at any place.
It
if
would.
The head coach chooses to go, and whether it was to confirm or combat a story, more than likely combating a story, not necessarily confirm it, you're going to end up, having this sort of friction. And then it may sort of break off into another reporter or journalist that's there. So if he doesn't win, just like in New York with the Jets, if he doesn't win here, I think his feet is going to be held to the fire. But also he knows now that I can't try to fight every battle that is being, put before me from the media. I can't fight all those battles. I got to pick one or two, and I got to do it and then move on. Because if you try to pick all these battles, you lose sight of what your team is doing. And I think ultimately that's what happened with the Jets.
Skyler says, we have an a-hole reporter, paulkaharski.com. Well, I think Paul would take that as a compliment because he does carry himself as that sort of bulldog reporter. I'm going to hold everybody accountable. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for Paul Kaharski and how he does his job. And when I was covering the Predators, I tried to do the same. But overall, Nashville as a market, as I said, we have matured. We hold our teams, our coaches, our players accountable. We want answers, but we're never going to have the same venom as some of these entrenched sports markets with decades and decades and decades of history compared to ours.
You want answers? You want answers? You want the truth? You can't handle the truth.
But I am interested to see if the change of scenery that we often talk about with players also translates to coaching. It's not something I've thought about as much. So when I saw that from Mike Sando in The Athletic, I thought it was intriguing.
I mean, I think it does for every coach, whether, you've been at a place for a while and you've had a good run, and then maybe the last few seasons, and first to come to mind is John Harbaugh. And things start to you start to wear out the welcome, and the relationship becomes strained. And you go to your new team, it's almost like a breath of fresh air. Not to say that's a bad thing. It's just I've been over here for so long and doing it with these people for so long. Now I'm going over here, fresh start, get to know new people, get to put in a system that I want, and see how this young team, responds from what I'm doing. He did it with Baltimore when he came in. I think that was my second year there. Yeah, second or third year there. And I'm sure that's what he's going to do with the Giants. And that's just like Salah. It went bad for him with the Jets. Dabo the same. You go somewhere else, and it's almost just not necessarily in a bad way. It's just, okay, I get to reset myself as a coach. I get to do some things that I didn't quite do over here. I get to do them here, or like I said, put more emphasis toward that. And, whether it turns out you're a winning coach, at the next stop, yeah, a lot of it, like Willie said, is based on whether you got the Jimmies or the Joes.
615-737-1025. Could Robert Saleh and Brian Daboll find more success in a less challenging market? And I feel like when I say that, I'm insulting Nashville. That's not my intention. But let's be honest. We are a less challenging market than New York. How many markets can compare to New York in that regard? 615-737-1025. Coming up next, speaking of New York, I've got to talk about something else that's coming out of New York. It has nothing to do with Jackson Dart and Abdul Carter, by the way. So let's just put that out there. But there is something else happening in New York that I want to discuss coming up next. 615-737-1025. We are your racing station this weekend. Catch all the action as NASCAR comes to the Nashville Superspeedway on 1025 The Game, presented by City Auto and Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery. Tomorrow is the Allegiance 200 at 6:30 p.m. Saturday is the Sports Illustrated Resorts 250 at 6 p.m. And on Sunday, the Cracker Barrel 400 at 5 p.m. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. T-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. For some reason, I had Derrick Mason's headset on my leg.
I'm like, where's my headset?
Did you put it down there and
No,
I didn't even realize?
No, I didn't. I didn't put it there.
That's what happens when you're on the golf course. I swear to you, I'm not drinking. I promise I'm not drinking. We are live at the Hermitage Golf Course for the 5th annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament. Joe Rexrode of Robbie and Rexrode and The Athletic will join us at the top of the hour to discuss the latest in college football. But before we get to Rexrode, I want to discuss something else happening in New York. We were just touching on Robert Saleh and Brian Daboll coming from New York to Nashville. The New York Knicks are awaiting the winner of the Western Conference Final between the Thunder and Spurs. And the Knicks will host games 3 and 4 of the NBA Finals at Madison Square Garden. It's been reported in multiple places that these are the most expensive NBA Finals on record. According to TickPick, games 3 and 4 at Madison Square Garden are the most expensive NBA Finals tickets ever recorded, with get-in prices of $3,876 and $3,609 respectively. These prices put the event in the same territory as the $3,800 per ticket price for February's Super Bowl. I'm wondering, how much is too much to pay for a ticket?
Sign me up to watch it at home.
Yeah. Of course, the Knicks are in the NBA Finals for the first time in nearly 30 years. We know New York loves its basketball. But again, the get-in prices for games 3 and 4, according to TickPick, $3,876 and $3,609.
Man, that is a pretty penny.
And the highest one was, we were looking at the
two courtside tickets sold on StubHub for a staggering $279,804.
Good Lord.
You just have to have stupid money to be in that realm.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, that's just like, oh, okay, here you go. And then you walk away. Have my tickets. Whew, I'm not sure. But, okay, listen, if you're a Knicks fan, like a avid Knicks fan that's been down since day one with the Knicks, and you have, those funds to pay, you, more than likely some people will pay it. But I don't think this would have happened in any other arena. As far as, because the Knicks have been starving. I know they went to the finals in 99, I believe, but they have been starving for a championship. When the Knicks win, or when the Knicks is doing well, the NBA is doing well.
By comparison, the get-in price for game 1 in Oklahoma City, if Oklahoma City makes the NBA Finals, $1,956. For game 1 in San Antonio, $2,006, compared to, what was it, $3,800 thereabouts at Madison Square Garden. Much cheaper to go to Oklahoma City or San Antonio than New York.
Well, and that also leads to the question, how the Knicks fans have been showing up at the road games. I wonder how many will make it that far west into those buildings. Just figuring, hey, I came up just short trying to get one of those $3,800 seats at Madison Square Garden. Let me try my luck over here. I'll just take a flight out to OKC or whoever ends up in that. I think it'll be something to see, because when you watch the Spurs or OKC, they have amazing fans. The other team's fans are not in those buildings. You're not hearing any roar when the road team's scoring there. But will the Knicks fans be noticeable? That remains to be seen.
Sports Illustrated had a story today with the headline, 5 things you could buy for the price of one wildly expensive Knicks NBA Finals ticket.
Okay, so what do we got?
So if you want to buy a ticket in Section 8, Row 5 for Game 4, $22,207 on StubHub. For that price, you could buy a used Nissan Altima at Carvana with roughly 55,000 miles. That would cost you $15,990. So you could buy the car and have a lot of money left over for gas and snacks and such. So you could either buy one ticket to a game or a used car from 2017.
Typically, if people are spending that money, they can buy the Altima. So it's like, I'd rather buy the ticket. But you're right. The things that you can purchase, with the money you would spend going to Madison Square Garden. Listen, if I was an avid Knicks fan, and the last time I seen the Knicks in the championship game was '99, and the last time they won a championship was way before that. When did
73?
Yeah, 73.
Is the last year they won the whole thing.
Exactly. So
Patrick Ewing and that group in '94 got to Game 7.
Yep.
And lost to the Rockets with Akeem.
Missed the free throws, man.
John Starks went something like 1 for 17 in the last game.
It was bad.
He just had a bad game.
And I wanted the Knicks to win too. But you feel okay. I pay the ticket. I pay the price to see this team, try to win, because you understand that the league changes from year in and year out, and this may be the only opportunity you get to see your team play in person in a championship game.
Another thing you could buy instead of buying an expensive Knicks ticket: 3 Rolexes. Mm-hmm. If you're planning to cough up $57,469.50 to sit in section floor 12, row 4, instead you could buy yourself 3 Rolexes, specifically the Landweller 40. I'm not much of a Rolex guy, so I don't know if that's a great Rolex or not, but you could buy 3 Rolexes instead of a $57,500 ticket.
I'm wondering too, like, for $57,000, how many sets of season tickets could you buy to how many teams? Like across all sports, that would probably get you season tickets for more than 1 year in a lot of buildings.
But
right?
then you would get the ticket for less price, I'm sure, because if you are a season ticket holder, you will get playoff tickets for a cheaper price. Yeah.
Well, there's the marketing.
Exactly.
See, that's why you should buy season tickets.
Buy season tickets.
Here's my favorite one. If you want to sit in section 213, row 17, for the low price of $3,486.
Oh, what a bargain.
Instead, you can buy 7 Nintendo Switch 2s.
Right up your alley.
One in every room. One in the bathroom, for God's sake. That's what I would do. One texter says, to a lot of people, that's not a lot of money. I mean, if you're Timothy Chalamet or Spike Lee or Ben Stiller, who will certainly be at the games in Madison Square Garden, yes. But for the average fan, it's absurd.
Now, for the regulars, because those guys, to their credit, they're at a lot of games.
Exactly.
So I'm guessing they pay for the season ticket. I wonder what the face value of the season ticket costs
for them,
as opposed to trying to grab one of those seats on the secondary market as a one-shot deal for the NBA final. There's probably a big difference in the price. But
I'm sure they pay a upcharge because it is playoffs, and I tend to believe that once they get in the NBA finals, which they are in, it goes up a little bit more. But how much does it go up in compared to the lowest price on the on aftermarket?
The cost of sporting event admission has more than doubled between 2000 and 2025, climbing 123%.
At MSG or everywhere?
Everywhere.
I'm not surprised.
The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics found that the cost of sporting event admission more than doubled between 2000 and 2025, climbing 123%.
We need to have a fans union so we can bring it down.
Here's the crazy thing about it is that these leagues, and we're talking about the NBA more specifically, but these leagues have done everything they possibly can, and they're going to continue to do more so that you can get the experience at home. Like you can get the courtside experience, so to speak, at home, whether it be through different, platforms or angles they're shooting this thing or whatever it is. But there are some people that still would pay an enormous amount of money to go into the game.
There is no substitution for being at the game. I still feel that way.
There's a place where you're in almost like an arena, and you have your seat as if you were at the stadium. You can see and everything, and it's this huge screen, so it's like you're there in a sense. I forget where the place is at. So companies are trying to do everything. The NBA and the NFL and all these leagues are trying to do their best to make your home experience like the arena or the stadium experience or the ballpark experience.
615-737-1025. How much is too much to see your team play in a championship round? Get in prices for games 3 and 4 at Madison Square Garden on the secondary market are approaching $4,000 a ticket. Just let that sink in for a moment. At least $4,000 a ticket. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Joe Rexrode, our very own from Robbie and Rexrode, as well as The Athletic, will join us coming up next. We'll get his thoughts on SEC spring meetings and more in college football coming up next. 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. D-Mace, Vingan and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan, Connor Nute here with you. We are live at Hermitage Golf Course for the 5th annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament. And let's go to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in one of our own, the very own Joe Rexrode of Robbie and Rexrode mornings from 6 to 9, as well as The Athletic. Joe, I do have to say one thing to you before we begin. I know that you're not at SEC spring meetings this year. I'm very disappointed we did not get our romantic powwow between you and Paul Feinbaum on the Paul Feinbaum show with the beach and the waves crashing in the background.
Yeah, I mean, that was very lovely a year ago. Of course, I was writing a story about him. I don't know if people want to read a long story about Feinbaum every year. I mean, I would do it. Change a few sentences, you know.
I would read it if it meant that I got all expenses paid trip to Florida, but you are not there. But I know that you are paying attention to what's going on there. So let me ask you this. What is the most absurd thing you've heard someone say at SEC spring meetings so far?
Holy cow. Boy, is that ever a hell of a question, because there are so many amazing contenders. I mean, Mike, this is incredible. But I mean, to me, the easy answer is every single thing that, and a lot of people have said different things about this that have to do with the SEC breaking away and like doing their own thing. It's like the stupidity level is so high. Like, I really have to question if they're being serious. Are they just trolling everyone? Or are they actually trying to threaten that they would go, you know, enforce their own rules and then just play? Yeah, let's play our own national championship. We'll just call it the national championship. I mean, I think everybody with half a brain in that league understands that would be the end of both the SEC and really like college sports. And yet there's a lot of talk along those lines. I mean, like Scott Strickland from Florida actually said, like, the SEC geographic footprint is larger than England. So basically, like, why can't the SEC be like the Premier League? And like, yeah, totally, dude. Like, all around the world, people are going to start like cheering for Ole Miss basketball as if it's like, you know, Arsenal. I mean, I can't even. I don't even know what to do with these people.
Now, Rex, listen, we're here in a bubble in the South as far as SEC football, and everything around here. It doesn't matter who you're rooting for within the SEC. It's the SEC is the dominant conference, no matter what. But how is it perceived outside of the SEC bubble? Because again, the Big Ten has won 3 national championships in football. They just won a national championship in baseball. They've won a national championship in other sports. But how is it seen across just college football, college sports, period?
Well, I think people have hated the SEC outside the SEC bubble for a long time, but some of that had to do with jealousy because, you know, in football, I think they won, 16 out of 22? I think that's right. 13 out of 16, you know, whatever. The SEC was dominant for so long. So, you know, I mean, you know, well, D-Mace, like Big Ten country, SEC country, people are always at each other's throats to the point where, you know, during bowl season every year, people are keeping track, right, of who's winning the Outback Bowl and who's winning the Capital One Bowl and whatever else. But, I mean, look, I think that I think also right now people are fairly looking at the SEC and saying, wow, so the Big Ten's won 3 straight national titles in football and is 4-0 against the SEC in the playoff in those 3 years. So you're not as good, SEC. The era of being able to pay players and not have it all be under the table has not been good for the SEC. But of course, speaking of dumb things said in Destin, Greg Sankey let us know that, you know, the metrics say that the SEC is the best by far. Oh, don't worry. We got better metrics than championships. It tells us we're the best by far. I mean, my goodness. It's like the delusion level is incredible.
They are trying to protect. They're trying to hold on to that perception of them being the best conference out there. And Sankey is just trying to do whatever he can right now to make sure that stays in place. There's been legislation brought to called the Protect the College Sports Act They haven't presented it yet, but it outlines a few things. One, you only get two transfers or one transfer. It was one transfer, and trying to set up some guidelines within NIL. How do you think all of this ultimately works itself out in college?
Yeah, Derrick, I know that there are a lot of people, and frankly, a lot of people a lot smarter than me, who follow closely with all the attempted legislation, who have a little bit more optimism for this one. And certainly, like, it's an improvement on the SCORE Act. The SCORE Act was very explicit in saying that athletes will not be employees. And to me, that was one of the things that doomed it. This bill, the SEC has already said they're not going to pool their media rights, and that's no surprise. But if you really want it, I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it'll happen. I don't think it'll go through. I think it'll get the closest that they've been. Or if it does, something gets through, it will be stripped down tremendously from this. They're not going to get this big antitrust protection that they hope. So, I mean, I still think that we are, and some people have recognized this for a while. I give Tennessee AD Danny White credit. I still think that ultimately, like, you're not going to be able to enforce some of these limits on compensation and on movement unless you have some kind of employment status / labor collective bargaining. And so I think that's where we're headed. I think it's inevitable, and it's just a matter of how long and how painful the ride's going to be.
And that was my next question to you, Joe. Do you think they will ever? Because, listen, Northwestern tried this long ago. I think it may have been 10 years ago, trying to put together a union, and everybody shot it down. And I'm thinking, like, eventually they're going to break through, just like everything else. You thought you weren't going to pay these kids money. Eventually it broke through, and now you got to pay them a lot of money, more than what you thought you were going to have to pay. But do you think they ever get to a point where everything is collective bargained and it's with a union?
Yeah, I do. But yeah, it'll be, there are a lot of things to figure out. And some people will point it out, there are definitely college athletes right now saying, I'm good. Like, I'm getting as much as I want, and I go wherever I want year after year. So I don't, and that's the difference, right? Is that back then when the NLRB thing failed at Northwestern, all the people in power in college athletics had no incentive. They're like, hell no. I mean, now some of them or more of them are begging for it because they're like, how else are we going to limit this stuff? Like, we are going to, we're going to bankrupt everything because we just have to pay more and more and more to get this player, that player. And we're asking our donors every year to give more and more and more. And we have to limit this. And they didn't have any issues like that back then. So I do think it'll happen. I'm going to raise my hand again, say I'm not smart enough to figure out how to, when you have to pay someone well to be like the union chief, you have to find someone who would hold that job for a long time because this is obviously a transient labor force. There's a lot of things to figure out, but ultimately, I think athletes will get a bigger cut, and that will be their incentive to unionize, is that the lower levels of some of these guys will be rewarded more. But yeah, the top guys are going to be capped, and their movement's going to be limited. So you got to make it worth their while.
Joe Rexrode is with us from The Athletic, and also, of course, Robbie and Rexrode, our morning show here on 102.5 The Game. Joe, I've seen some writers hit on a really good central question. Knowing the rebellious nature of the SEC, the renegade nature that goes back decades and generations of trying to get an edge and getting around the rules. But there's also such a wild, wild west right now that I think even the most renegade kind of coaches are saying, well, I wish we had some rules, right? So do you think they want order in the SEC? Do you think they want to be governed and have some guardrails?
Well, yeah, until it's them who can't get the deal through the CSC because it's not really an NIL deal, and they're going to lose the quarterback that their coach says is the key to everything, and then they don't want the rules to apply to them. I mean,
right.
it's just the same old story. And conferences were formed more than 100 years ago because basically because people were just like bringing in like 28-year-old ringers to play college football games. There were no rules at all. I mean, that's why they exist, and these rules have existed to be broken for as long as college athletics existed. So yeah, the SEC people are talking about it, and I find it just amazing to think of the SEC having its own rule book and then enforcing its own rules among its members and thinking that that's why everyone will comply now because we're going to make it SEC only. I mean, it's just so, yeah, I mean, do they want these guardrails? They do, but then they'll point to this person who, they jumped they overstepped, they tampered, whatever it is. And, I mean, when it comes down to it, you can bounce around, and just about everybody at some point doesn't want the rules to apply to them.
Right. So it's like, give me the rules so that I can get around the rules. That's how the SEC is always operated, I'm sure. So if you're Greg Sankey, Joe, like one thing that has been pointed out, and it's a good point, is conference commissioners almost never penalize their own school. Like a good example, a couple years ago, the Big Ten could have come down on Jim Harbaugh, but they really didn't, right? They kind of said, well, they're in the Big Ten, they might win the national championship. So that might have been incentive to just sort of let it play out, let the NCAA deal with it. And the NCAA is too slow, toothless, whatnot. And that probably helped Michigan get to the finish line. But if you're Greg Sankey now, in the leadership that he's in, he's going to get hammered no matter what he does. But how would you approach it if you're him? How would you try to please as many people as you can, at the same time try to satisfy your constituency, but at the same time try to look out for the game and for sports?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, and I don't have a great answer for you. It's interesting you bring up. I mean, you're right. The Big Ten could have done more. I mean, they did still suspend Harbaugh in the middle of the season. That kind of tells you like how serious, like how legit that whole thing was in terms of the cheating being done under conference standings. But you're right. I mean, it's of course you're looking out for your own, which is again why like the NCAA really like in the 50s was created, because it's like we need to have a centralized thing, and so the NCAA kind of becomes the bad guy that can at least be detached to a point and try to enforce rules and try to investigate with no subpoena power. But that I don't know the answer to your question. I mean, I think everybody's on this wild ride. I mean, the CSC, this College Sports Commission that they created out of the House settlement to enforce the NIL rules. I mean, that Brian Seeley, who's in charge of that, basically went to Destin this week, and it seemed to me like almost like a plea for help publicly. Yeah. Like, hey, a lot of these guys say they want rules, but they're not acting like they want rules, And then you hear from ADs who are saying that these deals that have not been approved, so you might have hundreds of thousands of dollars that doesn't get into the hands of athletes that's been promised. So when does that lead to? I mean, are we going to be talking about like actual holdouts and stuff if that money doesn't actually materialize? So the College Sports Commission is trying to enforce rules, but meanwhile, I think the number was 75% of the deals that right now are being held up are from the Big Ten and the SEC. So those two big leagues are the most in terms of trying to push the envelope to get all this money into the athletes' hands. And, if the CSC is doing what it was charged to do, then some of these are just not going to be approved. So then what about the schools that aren't even like complying at all and don't even care about the CSC? I mean, it's such a mess. So like if you're a conference commissioner, I mean, at some point, I do understand to a point why you're like, gosh, can we just focus on ourselves? Because when you really look around at the whole thing, there's just no controlling any of it.
Okay, from the player side, Joe, do you like the 5 years to play 5 period with, I guess, one transfer in there? What do you like that change, or so you think that's simple enough?
I do. I like it. I like the the age limit thing too, so we can start to get rid of the 28-year-old European pro coming over to play for Will Wade.
Age limit to me has to be in there.
Yeah, and one transfer. I mean, certainly there are times when it's just not working here, and you can take that transfer. But if you have this rule, I think you'll have more multi-year deals, and I think you'll have more continuity. And I think a lot of things that have turned off some college sports fans will get better. Now, one thing to remember, Willie, is we always think about those like the players staying around as a player thing, right? Like they want to leave, they want to go. These coaches have not necessarily minded being able to purge their rosters more freely either, right, in this era. Yep. And so, I mean, there are coaches who will tell you, well, I mean, I like the idea of 2 and 3 year deals, but with some of the guys who don't work or aren't as good as I thought they were, now I'm stuck with them. But you know what? Like, it's just never going to be perfect.
Rexrode, before we get you out of here, I do want to sneak in one college basketball question for you, because I know Robbie doesn't like to talk to you about college basketball, and shame on him for that. The news last night that Tyler Tanner will be returning to Vanderbilt. Where would you put Vanderbilt in the pecking order? I know it's way, way, way too early. College basketball season is still several months away. But with Tyler Tanner back at Vanderbilt, where would you put the Commodores in the pecking order in the country?
I think they're a top 10 team on paper. And honestly, I mean, I think in the SEC, you got to start with Florida, I think, with the tremendous haul they're bringing back. But I think after Florida, I'm looking at Vanderbilt and I'm looking at Tennessee. And I think both of them on paper could be top 10 teams. I feel we talked about this a little bit today, actually. Robbie did engage in college basketball talk.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah, but and he asked me, like, so which of these would you feel better about, Vanderbilt or Tennessee? I said Vanderbilt just because Tyler Tanner is such a known commodity, and I just think that when you know what you have with him and what I think he'll be next year, that's just, he's going to be one of the top 2 point guards in the country, along with Jeremy Fears at Michigan State. But I also think Tennessee just has, I mean, it's a fascinating portal season for Rick Barnes. So I think both of them could be top 10, could be like fighting to be 2 seeds or 3 seeds, something like that. Should be a ton of fun. Football season maybe a little strained with the young quarterbacks, but I think basketball season in the SEC in this state is going to be awesome.
Joe Rexrode has been our guest on D-May Spin Gnadonic. Of course, you can hear him every morning on this station from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., as well as read his work at The Athletic. Joe, a pleasure. I hope nobody at the gym near you has any BO today.
Thank you. I want to bring my nose plugs. Thanks for the reminder.
Yes, lather up the deodorant, my friend. Thank you, Joe. 615-737-1025. By the way, since this happened as we were talking to Joe, but Amy Adams Strunk has announced that Dave McGinnis will be inducted into the franchise's Ring of Honor. The late Dave McGinnis will be inducted into the Tennessee Titans Ring of Honor this fall, as announced by owner Amy Adams Strunk. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, let's continue the SEC conversation. Let's talk more about what Rexrode said was the most absurd thing he heard at SEC spring meetings. It came from the lips of Kirby Smart, among others, but mostly Kirby Smart. 615-737-1025. Willie Dunnick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. That was Georgia coach Kirby Smart hinting at SEC secession? Question mark? Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Joe Rexrode said that was the most absurd thing he heard at SEC spring meetings. Judging by the looks on y'all's faces, I would say you agree with Joe.
I have no idea.
If we all be drunk.
Oh,
okay. If we had the money, if this and if that.
The ifs are just, is he going to be the CFO? Is he going to be doing the balance in the books?
If
we could pay for it, yeah. If I could pay for it, I'd have a private jet. I'd fly up to Ohio every weekend. I don't. He's not. There's no thought behind that by him. Come on, for a guy as successful as a coach as he is. What is he talking about?
But it seems like the SEC has been stepping in it, like across the board, whether it's coaches, do you
think the SEC
and now
is having? Do you think the SEC is having its version of a midlife crisis?
Possibly,
because the Big Ten has been winning all of the titles. Now, Greg Sankey will tell you, as Joe said, the metrics say we're the most competitive league in college football. I agree with that.
No, you know who the SEC is? It's just like that movie with a popular girl, and all of a sudden that other girl comes in, and everybody start liking her, and everybody start voting for her, and all of a sudden she gets vindictive and start, remember this, and I'm still this, and that's the SEC.
It's the meme with the guy looking back at the girl while he's walking next to his girlfriend. I'm sure you've seen this meme. That's the SEC is the girl in disgust because her boyfriend is looking back at the Big Ten girl walking the other way. But
yeah, I mean, listen, the SEC, whether they say it publicly or not, they know they do not have a vice grip on sports anymore like they used to, where they could hoard players and keep them on because no one could transfer, and maybe they can give a little bit more and they're able than some other teams, and you were recruiting in your backyard. Now, because of NIL, it's wide open. Guys are choosing to go where the money is. Girls are choosing to go a lot of times where the money is if they can get paid. And that has flipped everything on its head. And in SEC, not to say that they haven't adjusted to it, they just don't like it. They just don't like that they're not considered. If they still were considered a top dog but not winning, they would be fine with that, because they can hide it in the background. But now, that's why I asked Joe that question. It's like now people don't recognize them as the top dog anymore, and they have a problem with that.
Dan Wolken of Yahoo Sports wrote a column about this, and here is the meat and potatoes. Quote, if the primary issue is that schools won't follow the rules because all they care about is winning, the SEC's hands are stained by decades of dirt. The only thing that's changed is that in a world without rule, the Big Ten has ascended and the SEC has declined. Now, in response, the SEC thinks the answer might be to go do its own thing under the guise of creating a more level playing field, as if that's something it has ever cared about when it had the structural advantage of not having to pay its athletes. Sometimes you wonder if these members even hear themselves talk. But I'll make this very clear and simple. If the SEC breaks away from the NCAA, it will be the end of the SEC.
Why would you play as an athlete for a championship if it's not a national championship? Only one team's going to win the national championship, but to act like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to the SEC because if you win the SEC, that's better than a national championship. When you have the other 2/3 of the country or 3/4 of the country out there, and that's just not how it's always worked. That's just not the mindset. Let's have a national championship. Nobody wants them to break away. I do not think it. I don't think that is anybody when they wake up as an SEC fan says, I can't wait to the day the SEC breaks away from everybody else and has its own thing. That's what I want. Fans don't want that. Kirby Smart doesn't want that. And Dan makes a good point. It's in the SEC's DNA to cheat and push the envelope. So now we're going to say, oh, now we can make the rules. And
coming
we're gonna
from a proud SEC
be,
graduate.
Yeah, well, look, I know the history. I'm not stupid.
Hey, Willie got a scratch.
If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
And I don't get on it. I used to be the guy fighting it and saying they've got to reel it in. But Dan's point as well, and Pat Forty had a lot of the same theme in an article he wrote for SI. He said he had an SEC official quoted off the record said, "We're going to self-govern."
Oh, wow.
How is that going to work?
Laughable.
It's not going to work. They can't. They're always going to be infighting. That's one of the things that is compelling about the SEC is that they drive each other. Somebody's doing well and you're on a down cycle. We're going to figure out how to get there. And so if they were in their own league, who would want to be the commissioner of that league?
No,
it would be whereas make fun of Tony in the NCAA office who has no power. Who would be at the top of the SEC? Greg Sankey. You think he wants to police all those guys? No way.
It would be a huge headache. I'm sure he's happy he can go to other athletic directors and talk with them from other conferences. The SEC can't sell itself anymore on hey, listen, you come here. What is your goal? To make it to the next level. Look how many people we have that have won to that next level. No longer can they say that. They can say it, but then shortly after them saying it, the next question will be, well, how much money can you give me? How much money do y'all have in the budget for me to come there? I'm a 5-star quarterback. Everybody else want me. How much? I know you've sent a lot of people to the NFL, but so did that school over there. And they're in the Big Ten or that school over there in the ACC. No longer can they just sit back on their laurels and say, hey, I have had over the last 10 years, 20 first-round draft picks. Okay, and where the money at?
Yeah, and I'm going to play?
Exactly. Am I going to play right away?
That I think is probably what gets to Kirby Smart as much as anything is you can't set the numbers in your favor as easily as you used to because of the free transfers and the ability to get paid. And there's a downside to it that I talk about all the time. I like being able to stay at a school for 4 years and you build that friend group that's there. There's benefits well beyond what happens in the 4 years that you play. But I also get it. If you're a quarterback and you're a high recruit, you go to Georgia and the coach tells you, well, we got this really good quarterback who's going to be here for 2 more years. Or we just brought in a guy he's 22 and he's played 50 college games. And so Derrick, you freshman, just sit back and watch for a couple years and develop. It is not unusual for that freshman to say, well, that's nice and everything, but I'm out of here. I'm going to where I can play, right? Why do you think Jared Curtis is at Vanderbilt and not Georgia?
Gunner on our text line says, how many schools would leave the SEC if that were to happen? Why would Kentucky, Vandy, etc. want to just stay if they could relocate and possibly be in a better situation?
Well, it's not going to happen. I don't know why we're even talking about this. But
it's not going to happen. I mean, ultimately, individuals teams came to the SEC or the Big Ten because for them financially it was better. So the same amount of I'm not sure. And listen. Say if they do break off, and it's not going to happen, but hypothetically, say if they do break off, they will get television deals, but you don't think that those other conferences are not going to get those deals either, and they may end up getting more?
I also think that they would never want to admit it.
And you got to take all your teams out, not just your football team, all of them.
And the bloated number of teams in these conferences because of the TV money and our footprint. Now we got our footprint. It's bigger. It screws up college football more than any other sport, but it also has a domino effect on the other sports too. Is when you have a 16 or an 18 team league, it's a bad number. You can't really have a conference where everybody plays everybody. It was so much better when you had 8 to 10 max 12 teams in the league, because then you can determine a league champion. You have geographic advantages. It works for all the sports. That has gone completely out the window, and that's creating a lot of these problems.
It does. And I think a prime example is this. Not that it creates a problem, and it may not even be comparing apples to apples, maybe a California apple to a Virginia apple. I don't know. But take, for instance, Notre Dame. Notre Dame's able to live without a conference in football because they got a huge deal, but their other sports are in conferences.
Yeah.
So they're able to sort of navigate or survive by themselves without being in a conference. Why? Because they have the brand is big, but they have a huge TV deal for one particular team. Now, if you're talking about taking that money and they got to spread it across every sport on campus, I'm not sure if they would be able to do that. But because it's a single sport and all the rest of their sports are in a conference, they're able to do it.
All right, Adam, do you think this sends us one step closer, though, to the top 40 or 50 breaking away from the next 100 or whatever? And then we have basically have a new division, the revenue people, and then the next tier.
I hope
because that's
not.
what a lot of people are wanting.
I hope not.
But aren't they trying to stop that through legislation?
I hope so. I mean, I want to try to work with the model as best we can and preserve it as best we can. But I also probably want to go backwards more than a lot of people. There's a lot of things I would do that aren't for money, that it would just be for the best competition. And knowing that people are going to cheat and push the envelope, still keep rules and regulations to some degree to where everybody feels like at the end of it, things are being policed, and that when you crown a champion, it's legit.
You can do that.
Sean,
collective bargain it.
Sean,
that's probably the answer.
On our text line says someone should show Kirby Smart the Live Tour and how that's working out.
Yeah.
Gino,
eventually you'll crash.
Gino says D-Maze is right. The Big Ten just took off the glasses and let the hair down, straight out of a 90s teen rom-com. 615-737-1025. Kirby Smart hinting at SEC secession. We know that it's not going to happen, but they're still putting it out in the universe. It's absurd, just as Rexrode said. But we'll take your thoughts on it. 615-737-1025. We'll take your reaction, and we'll continue the conversation. Coming up next, Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Elliotte Friedman, SportsNet NHL insider extraordinaire, will join us at the top of the hour. We'll get into the latest in the Predators GM search. A lot of rumors out there about Avalanche GM Chris McFarland possibly joining the Predators front office. We'll hear what Elliotte is hearing at the top of the hour. But in this segment, I'm gonna throw it to Will. I'm gonna give Willie the choice of what we discuss here. We can either talk about your boy, Hunter Yurachek, or your other boy, Bryce Wasserman. You choose.
You got two boys, man.
You got your boys.
Yeah.
Well,
as a reminder,
which one is more?
As
of
a
your
reminder,
boys?
here is why.
why don't we go with the local story?
Okay.
I would say.
By the way,
Although Hunter Yurachek was at Vanderbilt for a time, which is part of what's stuck in my craw about him.
By the way, if you're wondering why Willie dislikes Hunter Yurachek, who is the Arkansas athletic director, it's because Hunter Yurachek said near the end of the college football season, quote,
well, he was on the committee.
He's on the committee
to select the college football playoff.
Quote, now that Tennessee is no longer ranked, they just don't have a signature win, meaning Vanderbilt. That's after Vanderbilt crushed Tennessee in Knoxville at the end of the season.
A guy that's an athletic director in the SEC who knows how hard it is to win at Tennessee. And Tennessee had only lost to other playoff contenders in the season. They were in the top 25, conveniently moved out of the top 25. And then he thinks that's going to fly, that he says, well, now that Tennessee's out of the top 25, after Vanderbilt beat them, Vanderbilt doesn't have a signature win. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard by any committee chair. That is the dumbest.
Were they not?
I wanted to bring that up just to hear Willie react.
Because now he's complaining about something else, right? Hunter Yurachek about their start times.
He's complaining about Arkansas's
get the violins out
to start the season in, I think, weeks 2 and 3, because Arkansas goes to Utah and then plays Georgia the following Saturday, and the times mean that Arkansas is going to lose a day of rest and recovery. I don't know. It's a whole thing.
Come on, man.
But I just wanted to bring it up so that Willie could
likes
yell
to check
about
for the TV
again.
stations, I'm sure.
Yes. So here's Willie's other boy, Bryce Wasserman, son-in-law of Amy Adams Strunk. And he was recently promoted to football counsel / head of research. And Paul Kaharski of paulkaharski.com reported yesterday, Bryce Wasserman's Titans role comes into focus. So although Wasserman is football council head of research, it will not leave him in charge of the research and development department. In fact, Kaharski writes, the Titans have differentiated Wasserman's research role from the research and development department, which has been renamed strategy and analytics. See if you can keep up with me here.
So far, this is what I got. He's in charge of the research department, but not in charge of research.
In the readjusted structure, no one reports to Wasserman. Strategy and analytics reports to new executive vice president of football operations, Dave Gardy. Wasserman's research is specific to Mike Borgans.
It's right out of Office Space, is it not?
That's like, what do you do here?
What is it? What'd you say that you do here?
What would you say you do here?
He's in charge of research, but then nobody comes over the research.
Nobody reports to him.
Exactly.
They report to the other guy.
Oh,
the
man.
guy that replaced Brinker.
So did you get all that?
Oh,
the word that comes to mind is nebulous.
Yes,
it's
ding.
nebulous.
Yes.
Ding.
Oh, man.
I don't have a bell with me, but I'll ding it here. Ding.
Well, whatever he does, it's deemed important for the organization. I mean, he reports, he gets it, but doesn't report it, or no one reports to him. But does he report to Borganzi?
It says in Kaharski's
everybody
article,
reports to Borganzi.
Yeah,
yes,
everybody.
Wasserman's research is specific to Mike Borganzi.
Uh-huh.
It crosses into multiple departments, including salary cap, scouting, and analytics, and includes studying trends and markets for trades, contract extensions, and free agents.
I'm not going to tell you what it sounds like, because I don't know exact, because his job may be important, and I'm sure it is. Again, they hired him to do some specific things that they deem important. but ultimately he's Borgonzi's guy. Go get what I need, do the research, go get what I need, and bring it back to me. But no one reports their information to you. That's what it seems like.
I just continue to ask the question that, I mean, it's pretty obvious that he would not have this title were he not the son-in-law. So the question is, when they have meetings and they're sitting around the table and they're going through the agenda, the big things, whether it's research, analytics, scouting, salary cap, contracts, when he is asked to give input, does he have input? He might.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not. Maybe he is a valued guy, but I'm curious about that because if he sticks out like a sore thumb of somebody who really hasn't been in football and really doesn't offer much, I wonder how that's going to play itself out, especially with his unique position with the owner. What's said in the room, what gets back to the owner, what if there's bad blood, what if there's mistrust? I mean, there's a lot of things that could go wrong. I'm not saying it will. Maybe it's one big happy family, but that is a really interesting description by Paul of what it is the job supposedly is going to entail. Now, they haven't started yet. It might evolve as they move forward here. And like we've said all the time, you can give yourself whatever title that you want. But when you come in every day, are you working together and are you bringing something to the table?
The head of research does not leave him in charge of the research and development department.
Yes.
Read it one more time. The head of research.
Yes. The head of research role doesn't leave him in charge of the research and development department. In fact, the Titans have differentiated Wasserman's research role from the research and development department, which has now been renamed strategy and analytics.
So there's two research departments.
I'm having a hard time following this. Not that Paul's not that Paul's doing a bad job explaining it. It's just very convoluted.
Yes,
man,
to say the least.
And as I've said, I think Bryce Wasserman replaces Chad Brinker as the new boogeyman among Titans fans when things go awry for the team. Before it was Chad Brinker. What's he doing behind the scenes? What strings is he pulling? No?
I don't even think it's that. I don't think I don't think they want him to be sort of the boogeyman or the bad guy or, he's the guy that's
he's not trying to, but fans look for that, right?
I'm not
who can we blame?
Yeah, but I'm not sure because they're telling you he has a job, but he doesn't really.
Right. But okay,
so you can't blame him if something goes wrong.
Here's another thing that I think is potentially in play.
Mm-hmm.
When you're, what is he, 30 years old, I think? 30 years old and not a guy that has been in the game for a long time. But he's got some sort of say. He's got a title. We know that. It's nebulous.
No bio, though. No bio.
No bio. No bio.
No bio.
Because that would have them listing what he's done to
They're going to have
be
a
qualified
bio
for the
pretty
job.
soon here.
We'll see.
They're going to have one.
We'll see. But John Chaika, the general manager for the Maple Leafs.
Yes.
Why was that really nasty question asked? Because John Chaika, in his last go-round as a general manager, was hired at 26, I think.
He was, I think at the time, the youngest GM in major professional sports.
Now, Theo Epstein for the Red Sox got hired at 29, and people were really wondering how that was going to go, and it worked out well. Theo Epstein was able to make it work. He had good people around him, and he was able to keep the respect, and they obviously won a lot. So he's a hero. Then he went to the Cubs and did the same thing. So he
knows what he's doing.
But Chaika was derided because he acted like he had all the answers and knew everything. He mistreated a lot of people. But at 26, can you really have the wisdom to manage people? It's not easy. Maybe it can be done, but that cannot be easy if you're surrounded by people who've been in the game a lot longer, that have a lot to offer, and you're saying, no, I don't want to hear what you have to say because I'm 26 and I know how this works. So I don't know what. So I just asked the question, when Wasserman's in on these meetings and you're around Reggie McKenzie and Mike Borg, guys who are older and their life has been football, can you be a valuable person in those discussions? Hopefully, yes. But I wonder.
It's a good question, but I'm hoping we'll learn more about this guy as time goes on. But again, the fact that he is Amy Adams Strunk's son-in-law does.
You got to
stick
strike
out.
again. You got to strike against you going in. You can't help it, right?
But I think
so. If he's smart, he'll go in
Yeah.
saying, "Look, I don't know everything. I'm just here. I want to be help. You guys run it. Tread lightly."
But they're putting him. He's sort of in this position where he's going to get lost in what's going on once you get into the season, because it's not like the information that the research that he's doing, he's giving it to everybody. Like he's head of everybody, and he's getting it, and then he's giving it all to Borgonzi. It's almost like the research you do is maybe the research Borgonzi wants you to do. You go do it and you report back to him. But everybody else is doing the other stuff. So the only way you will know about Wasserman, so to speak, is if everything's going wrong. And like you said, and I'm kind of going back on what I said, but like you said, it's like he could end up being sort of the bad guy alongside Borgonzi, but he won't turn out to be like just solely we're going to blame it on Wasserman.
Right.
He would be tied to Borgonzi somehow.
Well, let's take it out. Let's take it beyond the how is it perceived from where we sit, the media and the fans. But don't you think it's human nature, right? If things aren't going well, and Mike Borgonzi, maybe they're feeling a little pressure, it's not going well, wouldn't there be a natural, like, what's Bryce going back to Amy with? How is he perceiving what we're doing here? We thought we had this, and we all agreed that this was the way to go with this contract or this trade or this decision. It hasn't worked. So, but what's Bryce saying? What's his perception, right? Is there a trust there that he's not taking? Amy, let me tell you, those guys in that room that you hired, holy cow. Let me just tell you what that said in that meeting. It happens in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
I hope it doesn't happen here. This is me. I'm not trying to project that this is going to happen. I'm just, when you make a hire here like this, then this is what you have to prove people wrong.
But do you believe he's in those meetings? Because he reports to
I don't know.
Well, remember the scene that Nick Suss of the Tennessean painted for us a few weeks ago.
He did. That really got me going
at the combine, right? With Borgonzi and Ziegler and McKenzie, and I would assume Chad Brinker at the time. And there's Bryce Wasserman in this huddle. So it does appear that Wasserman is, if he's not in the inner circle, he's just outside the inner circle trying to break into.
He's walking with the people in the inner circle.
He's walking with the people in the inner circle. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Elliotte Friedman, SportsNet NHL Insider, will join us. We'll get into the Predators GM search and the Stanley Cup playoffs with our friend Elliotte coming up next. 615-737-1025. Speaking of the local professional football team, Tennessee Brew Works is the official craft beer of football off-season coverage here on 102.5 The Game. Raise a glass with Tennessee Brew Works, proud partner, official craft beer of the football off-season coverage here on 102.5 The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Nute here with you. We are live at Hermitage Golf Course for the 5th annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament. And joining us on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com, as he does every Thursday during hockey season at 5 o'clock, SportsNet NHL insider Elliotte Friedman, who is presented by Old National Bank and Green Ventures Landscaping. Hello, Elliotte. How are you?
I'm good, Adam. How are you doing? Are you golfing today too?
Fortunately for everybody out here, I am not golfing today. But I do drive a mean golf cart. I will say that.
That's an important skill. There needs to be somebody to yell, "You the man." That matters.
I got Derrick here safely, so that's all that matters. So, Elliotte,
Okay.
as we always do with you, let's start on the Predators GM search. Give us the latest, specifically their rumored interest in Avalanche GM Chris McFarland. What are you hearing there?
Well, I believe the interest is real, and but what I can't figure out yet is where all this stands. I do not believe they have a done deal with him. I'll tell you that much. I know, I'll be honest. I'd heard about their rumored interest in him, Adam, but I thought it was just. I couldn't confirm it while they were still in the playoffs. I just didn't think it was the right thing to do. And just personally, everybody makes their own choices. It just, without knowing for sure, I didn't want to say anything about it. Now that they're out, I do believe that the Predators will at least ask. I've been told that McFarland has one more year under contract. So they, it's not like they could wait until June 30th and then see what happens here. They would need permission. And I'll tell you something else. I think that if Nashville wants an honest shot at him here, and I'm not sure what the odds are, it would have to be a big promotion. He's the GM now. They'd probably have to make him president of hockey operations or something like that, and probably give him a nice salary too. I don't think this is just as simple as you want to come work for the Nashville Predators. Number one, the Avalanche have the right to say no. And number two, I don't even think they will consider a yes unless for some reason either they decide if you want to go, but I think it's more likely it would have to be something with a big title and a big race.
Contractually, Elliotte, how does that work if McFarland is under contract as Avalanche GM, but the Predators are offering him the title of president of hockey operations? How does that work contractually?
Well, it depends on what he has in his contract. I think that there are one of the challenges sometimes with some of these contracts, Adam, is that, like, for example, for the players, there's something called an SPC, a standard player contract. If you want to go online and look at the CBA, you can find what a standard player contract looks like. It's in the CBA. So you can go look at it and see what it says. And basically what it means is that all player contracts are basically the same with some exceptions. There can be no trade clauses, the salary, the signing bonus, the term, things like that. But generally, buyouts work the same for every player, contract termination, things like that. In these particular situations with executives, they're different. For one thing, a lot of them aren't public. I know of at least one team that has asked coaches to sign an NDA before signing them to contracts, so they can't say what's in them. There isn't like an executive union or association out there for all these guys, so they can be private. And I believe there are some contracts out there or some situations out there that it's spelled out somebody can leave for a promotion, but there are others. If you're under contract, you can't go anywhere. Like one situation we're dealing with right now is that Bruce Cassidy, who was fired before the end of the regular season as head coach of the Vegas Golden Knights, he's got another year under contract, and he wants to interview for other jobs, and Vegas is saying no. You can't. We're not letting you. At least like LA and Edmonton have asked to speak to him, and they've said no. And Bruce Cassidy today went on Spittin' Chicklets. He's pretty upset about it, but the NHL has ruled that they're within their rights not to do it. I've asked if he could terminate his deal, like some players have, and simply say, okay, I rip up my contract. You don't owe me a cent. They owe him $4.5 million for next year. And I've been told he can't do that. So bottom line is Colorado has him under contract. They control the situation. Does he have something in there that says that that he can leave for a promotion? Honestly, I don't know. But the fact that he still has time under contract means you need permission to talk to him anyway.
Elliotte, one question Predators fans have about the idea of Chris McFarland joining the team is why would McFarland leave a team that he has built into one of the top contenders in the NHL for a team that has missed the playoffs in 3 of the past 4 years? I understand that he would likely be getting a promotion, but what specifically could appeal to McFarland about this job?
Well, you know what? I think, Nashville's down a little bit right now, but number one, I think it's a great place to work and live. I think Nashville has shown that when things are going all right, they're a destination. People like to go there. It's a great place to live, whether you're single or you're a family. It's got great climate. It's a no tax state. It's got a really good home ice advantage. I think, to me, look, a couple of years ago, look at all the guys who've come and signed to play for you as free agents in the past couple of years. It hasn't worked out the way everybody hoped, but the bottom line, Adam, is all these veteran players wanted to go there. It's a good sign for, the organization. So I think he sees that. And I think, number two, maybe he does want to be a president. He's not going to be a president in Colorado as long as Joe Sakic's there. So yes, maybe he does want that. And maybe he wants a raise too. I don't know. Maybe you guys make him an offer he can't refuse. So I think there's always reasons. Colorado is a really good situation with a really good team, but maybe an offer comes that you can't say no to.
Elliotte, we had a chuckle the other day because we played a clip from your latest podcast where you warned people on the podcast, don't freak out about this, but you said that there is a theory out there that Barry Trotz could stick around as GM for next season if the Predators can't find their guy this summer. And obviously people did freak out about it despite your warning.
They did,
Yes, despite the fact that you warned people multiple times, please don't go insane about this, but you know how this works. How realistic do you think that theory is? Because in all of our conversations we had with Barry Trotz over the season, especially after he made the announcement of his retirement, we never got the sense that him sticking around was a possibility.
I think that came out of the fact that, like I said, I believe McFarland has one more year. And for example, what happens if Colorado says no and he doesn't extend there? You wait, and if you think this is your guy and you believe you have a chance to go get him, you wait a year. That. And let me just stress again, even though it will still go crazier than I intended. That's just that, I think, as you guys know, nature abhors a vacuum. So Nashville's sitting here, we're all wondering what's going on with this job. And especially there's a lot of executives who are together because right now the World Championships are overseas and next week is the draft combine in Buffalo. So a lot of people are together and you start throwing stuff out against the wall. So I admit that it was not my strongest theory, but that theory is kind of floating around. I'll tell you, I've had people tell me that the word around there is that one of the best interviews done was by Jeff Kelty, who's one of the current assistant GMs. And I think people were wondering if he could get the job on an interim basis. if they wanted to wait. But Nashville seems pretty desirous that they're going outside.
We're talking with Elliotte Friedman, 32 Thoughts Podcast. Now, Elliotte, we had you on last week, Connor and I, when Willie and Adam were out, and we held it down pretty good, I believe. But we talked about, Colorado and their series, potential, upcoming series with Montreal, and then obviously Vegas and Colorado. And I just assumed and presumed that it would be Carolina and Colorado, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people did. But obviously, McCarr gets injured. McKinnon is injured. Was it just more than that pushed Vegas to sweep that series?
I think it was more than the injuries. Derrick, I mean, you've played big time sports for a long time. I think it's almost insulting sometimes when you say, "Oh, the one team won because the other team got hurt." Were the injuries a factor? Yes, but I think Vegas played incredible. They have a structure. They stuck to it. Colorado is a fast team, and they beat you up and down the ice. They pounded people up and down the ice all year. They shut it down. By the way, the birds chirping is very therapeutic, I guess. but Derrick, they couldn't get through the middle of the ice. They couldn't do anything. The one thing I think about Vegas and Carolina, if this ends up being the case, is they're two really structured teams that are committed to playing a certain way, and they don't break off that certain way. They basically sit there and they say, "This is how we go, and you're going to have to beat our system." And their systems are a little bit different. Carolina, I think, is more aggressive than Vegas is. And if they do go head to head, it'll be an interesting clash of styles. But I think the number one reason they won, Derrick, is that they said, we're going to.
Did we lose Elliotte?
We'll get Elliotte back. We did lose Elliotte there. We'll call him right back. But Willie, interesting stuff as we await Elliotte. Interesting stuff on Chris McFarland, specifically the contractual aspect of it, because one would assume, hey, if you're under contract and you have a chance to get a promotion, go for it. Mm-hmm. But it is interesting that it's not as simple as that, it seems.
And I would have to think that Nashville is privy to at least some details of that contract to think whether it's realistic or not, that he has the ability to go there. Okay.
Let's bring back Elliotte Friedman. Elliotte, I'm sorry about that. Please continue.
I was just saying that the other reason too, Derrick, is that in the regular season, Vegas' save percentage of shots that they were saving was 28th best in the NHL out of 32. In the postseason, their goalie's the best in the league. And I don't care how good you are, if you're not getting saves, you're not winning in this league.
That is for sure. Elliotte Friedman is with us. Elliotte, one thing that you see a lot is the copycat aspect of it. There's that envy of Vegas in particular of, hey, look how bold they are. They're gonna make bold sweeping moves, and man, it's been amazing. But I think we can go through sports and look at teams that have had a bold approach where it's gone the other way. It's completely blown up. But Vegas deserves a lot of credit. One thing that I think is definitely worth looking at, especially with all the things you just said about Nashville's market, how people like living here. It's been a good place to play. It's got a good reputation. Vegas's ability to go get the big fish has been really beneficial for them. And you can go down the list, starting with Mitch Marner in the headlines right now. He's the latest, but they've done a lot with Eichel and so forth. Do you think that is something Nashville could step up, whoever is their new GM, and say, you know what, let's take a page out of Vegas's book with that. If one of these special guys comes out there, let's not tiptoe. Let's dive in.
I do. And Willie, I think in that way, Vegas and Nashville are a very good comparison. Look, like Vegas, Nevada, no tax state, Nashville, Tennessee, no tax state. Vegas, I mean, it's desert. I remember I went there once after the Stanley Cup final. It was like 109 degrees. I was like, what are we doing here? But
it's nice at night though.
Really, yes. But it's got a great climate. Tennessee, great climate. Different, but great climate. Vegas, everybody thinks about the Strip, but if you go into the suburbs, especially where the players live, great places for families to have a great life. And they all talk about it there. Like, their families really love it. So if you're single, obviously you can have fun in Vegas. If you're family oriented, you can have a great life in Vegas. Nashville, Tennessee, same. And the thing is, everybody talks about how Vegas has no draft picks and they trade them all for players. You can only do that when you're a destination. And you guys know, I'm a huge fan. Like 25 years ago, when you guys showed up in the league, I was just as skeptical and a snobby Canadian as anybody else. But now I see it. I see the vision. It's like Tennessee's a great place to live. It's a great place to be, and you've got this. I mean, you have almost the exact same advantages that Vegas does. And I know it hasn't worked out the way that you guys wanted, but go back a couple years and look who signed there. And you guys have kept Roman Yossi, you've kept Philip Forsberg. Players want to be there. You have an advantage, and you can capitalize on that.
Now let's flip to Carolina, and I asked this question to Adam off the air, but you would have even a better perspective of this. I think Carolina has been rewarded for their patience and their continuity, because they had the reputation of, well, they can get so far, but they can't get to the top, and they're not there yet, but they look like they have a real chance of winning this thing. My question to you would be, if Rod Brind'Amour had been if that same operation had been going on in Toronto, and they had the same playoff record, never getting so far but never to the top, would Rod Brind'Amour have survived it? Or do you think somewhere along the line, the nature of the market would be different so much that it is in Raleigh, that in Toronto they would say, well, we can't be patient anymore. We've got to try something else.
I got to tell you, that's a great question, Willie. It's a great question. I would like to think the answer would be, we've had so many years of losing, we'll recognize a winner when we see one. But I'd be lying if I said I know that would be the answer. I mean, look at Edmonton. They just fired a coach who went to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final 2 years ago and Game 6 last year. Right?
Right. That tells you a lot right there.
It tells you an awful lot. And, I think this, though. I will say this. I think Brind'Amour is unusual compared to a lot of other coaches. Like, his cult of personality is all over the roster of the organization. Like Eric Tulsky's the GM, and he's very good. But I think Rod has a lot to say. And I think that he is, he's also, I think he'll disagree, but I think he's paid a bit below market because he wants to be there. I think that team would really change if he wasn't the coach there, and I think they're smart enough to recognize that.
Elliotte, let's circle back one last time to McFarland. How do you see the dynamic between him and Joe Sakic? Because I think, taking titles aside, right, there would be a perception from afar that Joe Sakic, because of his legendary status as a player, is still the guy that is in charge. But we're not there every day, right? So McFarland could be the brains of the operation and doing everything. I just wonder how does he perceive himself as the number two? And he might be looking at Nashville saying, well, I would be the clear number one in Nashville.
You know what? I get along with Chris pretty well. He's a very guarded guy. Like the Sakic and McFarland, they do a really good job of keeping a lot of stuff quiet. like, I think he recognized, first of all, I think the Avalanche recognize that even though Sakic is the president, McFarland does a lot of the work and a lot of the legwork. I think they recognize that. They see his value. I think the two of them work very well together. I don't think there's any jealousy or anything like that. And plus, I think the thing about Sakic is he's not afraid to make hard decisions. And I think that that's what his skill is. Like, he's willing to say, you know, we're like last year with Rantanen, I just don't think that would be, I think that's something that Sakic would have to sign off on. And whether you agree or not, it was a hard decision. A lot of people would have trouble making the decisions he did. You know, so when I look at this, I see, when I look at this, I see a situation where the two of them work really well together. But, you know, the bottom line is, you're always, I think you can always be tempted by, okay, what if I get the chance for myself? And also, like, I hate boiling it down to the financial package because I think some people blow out of proportion, but it does matter. And what if Nashville said you'd have a bigger title and a bigger financial package than you have in Colorado? I think anybody would listen if they had the opportunity to.
Elliotte, before we let you go, I do want to ask you another question about the Avalanche. I guess you could say it's McFarland adjacent. But now that the Avalanche have been eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs, do you think the Avalanche are up against the clock? They're going to continue to be a contending team in the next few years. But Cale Makar is due a new contract. I believe after next season, he's going to get a huge raise. Marty Necas' contract is going way, way up this summer. Their core players are getting older. I'm wondering if that factors into McFarland's potential decision, maybe jumping off of the Avalanche train before they have to make some really tough decisions.
I don't think that would affect his decision. I don't. You know, I think that, you know, as long as you have Makar signed for a long time, which I suspect they're going to, you know what? Like, your window is open. Like, you still have, I mean, at his best, he's the best defenseman in the league. And I think you're always feeling you're going to find players to come and play there because, again, it's a really good place to live. It doesn't have all the same advantages as, say, a Nashville or a Vegas, but it's a really good place to live. And, you know, you look at the Kroenke family, right now, everything they're touching is doing well. So they're pretty good with with the teams they run. So everything is cyclical. You're right, Adam. You go up, you go down. But I just think it's more like, I don't think he would think like that. I think it would be more like, are you giving me reason to go? That's the bigger question.
Elliotte Friedman, SportsNet NHL insider, has been our guest on D-Mace. Vin Gnadondik joins us every Thursday during hockey season and is presented by Old National Bank and Green Ventures Landscaping. As Elliotte, as always, a pleasure. We'll catch up next week.
Take care, boys. Speak to you next week.
Yep.
615-737-1025. Let's react to what Elliotte had to say. You can as well at 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. We are live at Hermitage Golf Course for the 5th Annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament. A big thank you to all of our sponsors of this great event. I do want to give a shout-out to one of the sponsors, parked right next door, Chiba Hut Toasted Subs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We love Chiba Hut, and we're not just saying that because we do enjoy Chiba Hut. They fed us during the break. We greatly appreciate that. And all of the fine sponsors here at the 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament at Hermitage Golf Course. Also, a big thank you, as always, to Elliotte Friedman. He's a busy, busy man, and we always love his appearances on our show every Thursday. This Chris McFarland thing is very interesting to me because if the Predators pull this off, if they are able to hire Chris McFarland, Colorado's GM, to be a part of their front office in some capacity, as Elliotte alluded to, probably as a president of hockey operations, vice president of hockey operations, a bigger title, a promotion from where he is now. If they are able to pull that off, this nearly 4-month search from when Barry Trotz announced his retirement, by the way, that was 4 months ago, I think on Tuesday, that he announced his retirement. If they pull this off, this wait has been justified, because they clearly targeted someone, and I would consider it, at first blush, a home run hire if you bring in someone who has been as successful building a team as Chris McFarland. On the other hand, if McFarland turns down the Predators, if the Avalanche say, hey, you're going to honor your contract, you can't go anywhere, or tell us what Nashville's offering you and we'll double it, and McFarland says, thanks but no thanks to Nashville, and they end up hiring Tom Fitzgerald, or if Elliott's theory is correct and Barry Trotz decides, I'll stick around for my final year, I'll put off the retirement, that would be major egg on the face. So I do think there's a lot riding on this, but as Elliotte said, the interest appears to be real.
Derrick, it seems to me that just from a logic standpoint, for it to go on this long, that Nashville and their people leading the search have to have a good feeling about two things. A, that there's legitimate interest by McFarland in the job. And along the line, I'm sure in the midst of this run by the Avalanche, there had to be a couple of check-ins saying, Chris, still interested? Just want to make sure. We're holding everything here because you're our lead candidate. They must have gotten some sort of green light. And then the other part, Nashville has to have some kind of, I don't know if they could have absolute certainty, but they must have a pretty good idea that the language in McFarland's contract would give him the ability to go to the Avalanche and say, this is a legitimate promotion. I'm number 2 here behind Joe Sakic. I can be number 1 in Nashville. If they don't have decent amount of insurance, because as Adam said, there's a chance that he could be leading them along. And at the last minute, Colorado says, hey, Chris, man, we can't lose you. What's it going to take? We're going to give you a quadruple raise or something like that. If that happens, there's not much you can do. But I have to believe that the other two parts, genuine interest and contractual pathway, Nashville has to have a decent idea that that's a possibility, or else they're running a big risk here.
But this is a good organization. And good organizations tend to not sort of do things without having plans in place. So for them to go this long without choosing either, tells me, if I believe they're a good organization, that they have thought this out. They had the insurances that they need to move forward. And ultimately, like Adam said, it's almost like, was the juice worth the squeeze? The squeeze is waiting this long, waiting this long. And okay, you get your guy. Is it worth it? I think to the fans, heck yeah, it's worth it, because you were able to peg the GM from one of the best teams in the NHL, and you've given him a raise, or his title has increased. So you got someone from a winning culture added to your building. And then obviously it's going to have to be the GM from that, whatever title they are sort of looking for at this moment. It seems like they're looking for both, or at least the GM right now. So I tend to believe that somehow, some way, they've been able to circumvent some things somebody's been able to talk to somebody that talked to somebody, and things have what they are expecting is more likely to happen than not. But they can't come out and say anything. You just got to kind of wait for it to play out. And if you're waiting this long, if he's not your guy, then who is?
And I do wonder if there is a sort of drop dead date for this, because it's almost June. The offseason will be here. There are important meetings to have, drafting,
for both teams.
Free agency, all of those things. I would have to imagine that on both sides, they would want some clarity. Hey, Chris, are you sticking with us here in Colorado? Are you going to help us put together our free agency board, our offseason plan, or are you going to Nashville? So I have to imagine if something were to happen, it would need to happen soon, now, especially now that the Avalanche have been eliminated from the Stanley Cup playoffs. The other thing, too, and I asked Elliotte about this near the end of our discussion, is if you're McFarland, you look at the Avalanche are going to continue to contend as long as you have a healthy Cale Makar and a healthy Nathan MacKinnon. You are going to be in the conversation for the Stanley Cup every year. But a lot of their core players are getting older. As we've talked about, they've diminished their future assets, draft picks, and prospects because they're trying to win now. Cale Makar's due a contract after next season. He's going to get paid. I don't even want to know what that number is going to be. It's going to be
because Quinn Hughes is likely going to reset the market,
and then Makar's going to reset the market.
Yes, Makar will be right there.
It's going to be it's going to be huge. And
17, 18, probably not unrealistic.
Martin Necas, who I believe was making $6.5 million, is now about to make $11.5 million a year. So the cap's getting tighter. If you're McFarland, do you think to yourself, I have a better chance to win right now in Colorado if I stay here and squeeze this core as much as I can? Or do I jump ship a little early and try to build something in Nashville? I wonder. Elliotte seemed to suggest that's not part of his equation, but I do wonder. I mean, look, the Predators are not in the same position as the Avalanche, but there could come a time soon where the Avalanche are in the position of the Predators, and maybe McFarland wants a chance to build something back up. Just a thought.
I think that's realistic. It's possible. I still fall back on the. Do you feel like you want to be the builder? And that's why I'm curious about the dynamic between Joe Sakic and Chris McFarland, because Joe Sakic is recognizable in that market as a legend, and even if he doesn't deserve the credit for the trades and the contracts and the building of a great team, he probably is getting a lot of credit just because they know who he is. They don't know who Chris McFarland is. And so Chris McFarland would come here, and he would be the unmistakable guy. And they might bring in a guy under Chris McFarland who also has a lot of credentials from somewhere else because you have the two titles. So I'm curious about permission. Are we going to hear in the next day or so? You would hope, like you said, because both teams' clock is ticking now. Have we established that he's in play, that they have permission to talk to him? And then what's Colorado's move? Are they fighting to keep him? Or are they saying, look, you're number two here. If this is your dream to be number one, then go fulfill your dream in Nashville. These are all things because Nashville is running a risk here. And let's not forget another thing that Elliotte said earlier this week on his podcast, and we didn't get a chance to ask him this today. Other candidates that he's checked with have not been told from Nashville, you're out. We've got our guy.
Right.
They're still sitting there going, well, I guess, still be in this next. Like they've had to be really patient, haven't they?
Yeah, 615-737-1025 will take your thoughts on the Predators GM search, which is nearing its 4th month. But again, if the Predators are able to land Chris McFarland, if the rumors are true, I think you can absolutely justify how long this has taken. 615-737-1025. We'll wrap up the show. Coming up next, Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5. The Game. Willie Donick, Derrick Mason, Adam Vingan here with you live at the Hermitage Golf Course for the 5th annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament. Once again, we appreciate all of our fine sponsors. We're glad to be out here. I do agree with Elliotte Friedman. It's quite soothing to do the show with birds chirping in the background.
Relaxing.
I mean, I'm sweating bullets, but it's nice. There's a light breeze. I've got a John Daly cocktail.
Yeah.
That's right. I've been sipping it during the show. Pretty good.
It's good.
Pretty good. I am a professional.
Iced tea.
I am a professional.
Very much so.
I am a sucker.
John Daly.
I am a sucker for anything iced tea and lemonade. And
but you don't like you don't like sweet tea, do you?
no, I think sweet tea is disgusting.
Oh man,
Disgusting. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Nashvilleians out there.
So good.
And before you accuse me of being some carpetbagger from the north who doesn't understand
I'm from the north.
Well, I am technically, well, not technically, my birth certificate says as such. I'm not from the north. I am also from the south. And
Yeah.
I don't like sweet tea. My parents are from the north. I'm from the south. And I don't like sweet tea. Deal with it.
Sweet tea is good. Has a bunch of sugar in it.
Well,
It's got a lot of sugar in it.
Well,
Yes.
I'll do the unsweetened iced tea with the sweetened lemonade. That's what I'll do.
Ain't nothing wrong
Sweet
with
tea
that.
just doesn't have a great taste to me. It's
It's
a little
so
something.
good.
I like it something in between.
Nice and cold.
The overly sweet tea here, I've got where it's too sugary.
too
It's
sweet.
like whoa,
Yeah.
whoa.
When I go to the grocery store and they're selling extra sweet tea, I'm like, how much
No.
sweeter does it need to get?
I don't want it that sweet, even though I do love sweets.
I do remember one time going to a fast food establishment and ordering an unsweetened iced tea, taking a sip of it. It was sweet tea, and the face I made, like I was when you're
So
preparing.
you just despise.
Well, when you're preparing for unsweet tea, you take a sip and it's sweet tea. Your mouth is not ready for that.
So it didn't hit your lips and make you think,
I
"Wow,
went, oh
this
God.
is what I've missed. I need more."
No, I absolutely did not miss it.
Okay.
Dylan in Antioch says, one question. Has Willie been wearing his golf shoes held together with duct tape
I
again,
remember that.
like he did a few years ago?
You know, this is what happened to me last
we
week.
rammed him
Oh,
so
man,
bad that
they
day.
absolutely destroyed me. They shamed me.
How long ago was
Wow.
this?
This is maybe 3 years ago.
Okay.
And it was right here, and I showed them the shoes. I was prepared to
Yes.
go out there, and D Mace on the air just said, "Willie,
You can't.
you cannot represent our station and go out on this golf course. This is a nice golf course. You cannot go out there with these shoes." I had the silver duct tape all around it. To
The
keep it together.
electrical tape.
Electrical tape, and it did the job. It kept
Absolutely.
the shoe together. The shoe was separated from the sole. I don't know what it like. Everything was intact, but the sole had come apart. So I was like, "We're still good. We're still good." Derrick was
no,
like,
he
"No,
wasn't.
no."
No,
So I
no.
bought a pair in the pro shop. I
Oh,
still have that
man.
pair, and the pair came in handy for me last week because there was a lot of rain. There was rain everywhere last weekend, right? Memorial Day. We know it was like here in Ohio, it was just as bad. So after the first game, my shoes were soaked. I was standing in the puddles and stuff. I was walking around campus. The grass is high. My shoes were soaked. I was like, I don't have a dry pair of shoes.
Oh,
Pulled out the golf shoes.
Oh,
Walking around, just walking around town with golf shoes on.
hold on, Willie. No, you didn't.
that's
They were
better
dry.
than shoes with
You're
duct
walking
tape.
around. You're walking around the city, not the campus or not the area they were playing the baseball game at the stadium. You actually walked around town with
The golf
gray
shoes.
duct tape on your shoes.
No. With the new
okay.
golf shoes.
Oh, I thought you.
But
thought,
no, because you shamed me into
Yeah,
mine. So I
that's what
still
I was about
have
to
that
say.
pair,
okay.
and they're in fine condition. They're not torn up yet.
Okay. All right.
But I'm walking around town with golf shoes. It's not a good feeling.
But
they
those
were
other
dry.
ones you had for years,
those are
right?
gone. Oh, those are gone.
But you had those for years, right?
Yeah.
So
It could be much worse. By the way, you will be headed back up to Ohio as the Denison
Yes.
Big Red prepare
let's go, Big
to
Red.
start the D3 College World Series tomorrow. How's Coach / Dad Willie feeling about all of this?
Oh man, nervous. It's double with Coach Willie and Dad Willie. You put those two together, and you got a lot of pacing, a lot of armpit sweat. But it's been
Bring extra deodorant in the
yeah.
T-shirt, man.
if they can win tomorrow, they will set the new Division III record for consecutive wins.
Yes.
45. And
Let's
it will
go.
not be easy. East Texas Baptist, they've got a really good number one pitcher that's had a really good postseason. So we know anything can happen in baseball. Anything can happen.
How are they bat? How are their bats?
Their bats are good. They play on a smaller field than some teams, so they give up a lot of homers and hit a lot of homers. But in this park, it's a bigger dimension. Okay. So I'm not sure how that's going to play with this. It's also a dirt field. It's where the Cleveland Guardians single A team plays. That's the home. But it's a dirt field, natural surfaces, where a lot of the teams in the tournament, Denison is one, East Texas Baptist is also one. They have turf fields. So adjusting to the real dirt will be something both teams have to deal with.
Tonight,
we'll see what happens.
Tonight, Game 6, we will see what happens. We will also see what happens in Game 6 of the Western Conference Final between the Oklahoma City Thunder and San Antonio Spurs. Thunder up 3-2. They can close out the series tonight in San Antonio and prepare for the New York Knicks in the NBA Finals. Do the Thunder? I was about to say do's OKC. It must be this drink I'm drinking. Do the Thunder finish the job tonight against the San Antonio Spurs?
I don't think so. I wouldn't be shocked if they did, but I don't think so. I think Wemby, because he had a bad game last game. His field goal percentage, everything. It's the worst, I think, of the tournament, for him, at least. I think he's going to respond, come back in San Antonio, and help them pull off a victory. But if OKC win, I wouldn't be surprised. But I just see this one going 7. And once you get in the 7th game, all bets are off after that.
Willie, what do you think?
It's hard because I think I'm rooting for the drama of a Game 7, so I'm kind of leaning that way. But I think San Antonio at home, I think, has a really good shot. But Wemby's the guy. You're right, Derrick. He has had even some games in San Antonio where he hasn't shot real well. Like he can have a dominant game like he had in Game 2, like a game that nobody will forget anytime soon. But he can also have a game where he can't hit the outside shot. Yeah. And they can successfully sort of bully him around the basket and make it tough on him. So I have to believe that's going to be OKC. They're going to hope that he's not killing him from the outside, and then just be as physical as you possibly can in the paint with him and make everything a difficult task.
I think like any superstar player, because the game plan is to stop Wemby and the game plan is to stop SGA, get the ball out of his hands. With every superstar, if that is indeed the game plan, which it is, the other guys have to step up. That's what makes the game a little bit easier for the star player when the energy is exerted on him. But if those other guys, castle on those guys, are hitting from the outside, not turning the basketball over, then it makes Wemby's job a lot easier because now they're almost hesitant to double team him. Or if they do and just consistently do that, then those other guys are going to make them pay. They did to SGA, getting the ball out of his hands. I think in Game 1 or 2, and they made him pay for it. You know, OKC made them pay. That's what San Antonio has to do. They have to make OKC pay for double teaming and triple teaming Wemby.
Let's get a real question out there. The what everybody wants to know.
Yes.
Will the Spurs fan with the Oscar trophy be in attendance tonight and flashing it every time SGA falls down and flops?
I was going to say, how many flops do you think he gets accused of tonight?
But isn't that woman came up with a great idea? Whoever in her circle, she deserves all the credit. She came in with it really looks like an Oscar. It's like, it looks heavy. I don't know how heavy it could be hollow for all I know. But every time he flops, she's holding it up right at courtside. That was great.
Oh, man.
She's got to be there tonight.
Yeah.
There has been some major analysis done on the amount
flops?
of flopping.
Oh my gosh!
That SG.
Do you think he's aware of it? Do you think
absolutely he's aware of it.
Yeah. Do you think it's changed him a little bit? Like I was watching the last game, some of it. I didn't see him flop, but I'm thinking, I wonder if he is toned it down a little bit because of the big names in basketball, like big names. Yeah. Are saying, dude, you've got to tone it
because
down.
Now it's blatant. It's almost it's just blatant. Like I was watching ESPN today, or was it yesterday? Well, I was watching it both days, but I'm trying to remember which day it was said. But it's almost like when you look at your superstar players, you want, the kids want to emulate, whether it be LeBron, Michael, Kobe, guys like that. You emulate what they do on the court. Do you want your kids emulating SGA? SGA is a great player, but do you want them emulating what he does? Like falling down all the time, embellishing, making that more so a part of your game than what it actually should be. And I thought about that. I'm like, you may be right. I wouldn't want my kid falling down every second shot they take.
And putting your hand up to your head like,
exactly.
Oh, my head. Did you see?
And then they go back and show the replay, and he ain't even touch him. It's like, dude, seriously. But they all do it from that standpoint. But SGA is just like the king of it.
Speaking of flop, I've got plenty of flop sweat from being out here for 3 hours. But we had a fantastic time here at the Hermitage Golf Course as part of the 615 Charity Open. Thank you to all of our sponsors and, of course, Hermitage Golf Course for hosting the event today. We will be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Willie, good luck.
Thank you.
To the Dennison Big Red.
GBR.
We will be cheering on from afar. Thank you to Joe Rexrode and Elliotte Friedman for joining the program today. We will talk to you tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
Be loved. Love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, and wonderful day. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that music, don't you forget about us, because we will not forget about you. We will be back on these airwaves starting at 3 p.m. on 102.5 The Game. Shout out to my boy Connor Nute for covering my back today with the music. I appreciate you, brother.
You got tomorrow.
No other. Absolutely. So as I always say, we're going to be talking and
you're going to be listening.
Peace.